My name is Vicki Fordyce, attending St. Petersburg College, and for my research project, I wanted to know, to what extent does rapid rent appreciation in St. Petersburg, Florida, correlate with increased housing displacement and homelessness? And how effective are our current municipal interventions, specifically the Housing Opportunities for All plan, in mitigating the tipping point for vulnerable families? My interest in this subject stems from the fact that as someone who works for the city of St. Pete, I see homeless people every day, and their numbers only seem to grow. While I know there are different factors that contribute to homelessness and home displacement, seeing how high rent prices are makes me wonder how much homelessness is caused by rapid rent appreciation. I was a single mother, doing everything on my own, and it was crazy what I paid for a 2-bedroom apartment. For those that do have bigger families, that don't have a high-paying job and must rent, how do they do it? Are plans such as Housing Opportunities for All effective enough to make a difference for vulnerable families or people who find themselves in these situations? My first area of review was to explore the link between high rent and homelessness. I wanted to know what the tipping point was, or the point to where rent isn't just high, but rent has now reached a level that triggers a crisis. The next area of review was macro trends versus local realities, or to what extent is St. Petersburg homelessness and displacement crisis in comparison to the broader Florida areas housing collision where high migration meets low supply. I explored the legislative frameworks and municipal constraints. This area focused on the how and why of policy intervention, specifically looking at what a city can and cannot do. Finally, the pathway to displacement and eviction and wraparound risk. This area examined the tipping point not as a number, but as a process, and explored how a family actually loses their home. In this slide, I included a table of the most and least fruitful areas of research, but in more detail, the most fruitful was my verification of the tipping point when looking into rent to income ratios because of the high quality quantitative data I got from Shinberg Center in Glenn. The area of the missing middle policy evaluation was strong because I found recent 2026 State of the City data that provided clear metrics for the Housing Opportunities for All plan. The area of legislative conflict, for instance, the Live Local Act, its 2025 updates created a fruitful tension for analyzing intervention effectiveness. Lastly, I would say the area of targeted vulnerability, such as the 55-plus demographic, was fruitful as I found the sources highlighted a specific surging trend, the first-time homelessness among seniors on fixed incomes. Areas of least fruitful research were those areas that were either legally dead ends, lacked accessible data, or too broad to prove. For instance, when researching the area of rent control / stabilization impact, I found that because the Live Local Act banned local rent caps, researching the effectiveness of rent control in St. Pete was a moot point. Also, the direct casualty of homelessness, I learned that while correlation is easy to show, proving rent X specifically causes homelessness Y for an individual is difficult. Real-time eviction outcomes was the least fruitful area because while I was able to find filing rates, the outcomes where people go after they're evicted were notoriously hard to track. Finally, I would say the impact of very recent projects. For instance, talking about developments like the Fairfield Avenue apartments or the Vincentian Village that are still in construction or early leasing phases in 2026, researching their long-term success in mitigating displacement is premature. I can only research their intent and capacity. The most important things I found while researching this subject were that homelessness rose 28% in the last 3 years. Homelessness spikes sharply when rent exceeds 32% of the median income. There is significant increase in first-time homelessness individuals over the age of 55 due to fixed incomes. Eviction filings in St. Pete zip codes 33705 and 33712 are 40% higher than historic averages. High costs coupled with a lack of social safety networks are the key drivers. So solutions needed are increased missing middle housing, ADU zoning changes, and developer incentives.